If you plan to come to South Korea during this COVID situation from abroad, you have to go through the special entry procedure and do self quarantine for 14 days according to the South Korean government rule. Now, in this video, I'll try to explain the immigration process and the self quarantine process. Now, if you come to Korea, you have to follow strict quarantine rules for 2 weeks after entering Korea. Now, without any further ado, let's get started with this video. Now, the special entry procedure upon your arrival in Korea from abroad. This includes mainly the self quarantine for 14 days, 2 COVID-19 screenings, and downloading and installation of self quarantine and safety protection apps in your mobile phone. Now, those who are on a long term visa like D, E, F categories are eligible to self quarantine at designated facilities, but those who are on a short term like B1, B2, C1, C3 visa will have to stay at the government's designated facilities. Now, what is the procedure? Now, upon your arrival in South Korea, that is the Incheon International Airport, you will be subjected to temperature check, and after that, you have to answer certain self-health check related questions which you have already filled in the health forms, including the customs declaration and travel record forms. This is to check whether you have the COVID symptoms or not. Now, for making the process quicker and smoother, you should be knowing your passport number, the quarantine address, the flight number, and as well as a Korean local number, and install safety protection apps. Now, the Korean local number is very essential since they will call and confirm your arrival in South Korea. Usually, if you exhibit any COVID symptoms, you will be tested in the airport on the spot and will have to wait for the report there in a separate cubicle designated for it. But if you don't, you are allowed to clear the immigration and after reaching there, can get COVID screening within 3 days of arrival. Now, if you get tested at the airport, two things can happen. In case of negative report, you will be allowed to go to your self-quarantine accommodation, and number 2, in case of positive report, you will be taken to the hospital for the treatment and will not be allowed to go to your self-quarantine accommodation. Now, in my case, I was tested at the airport on the spot and had to wait for around 7 to 8 hours in the airport. Although I did not had any COVID symptoms, but I was from India, so I had to wait at the airport for the negative reports. After that, we were allowed to clear our immigration and then went to our self-quarantine accommodation. At the airport, after the temperature check and all the necessary filling out of questionnaires and submitting them, you will be getting a health screening card and also certain forms like the guidelines for self-quarantine and procedures of how to install the apps in your phone. And after that, there will be another counter where they will check the apps in your phone and then they will call your local guardian or the Korean number you provided in the forms. After completing all this procedure, you will be allowed to proceed forward and clear the immigration. After clearing the immigration, you are allowed to collect your bags from the baggage counters or the conveyor belt. After doing that, you will be allowed to proceed further, and there are certain booths where they will check your passports again and they ask you your destination, and there will be certain COVID special taxis or buses designated for your travel because you are not supposed to take the public transportation. Now, for me, I took the special taxi. Now, one more thing is that before you exit the airport, they will stick a orange like sticker on your shoulder so that it symbolizes that you are supposed to take the 14-day quarantine and you are not supposed to take the public transportation. Now, there are certain guidelines for the self-quarantine, that you should not leave the quarantine area, and if you do necessarily need to leave the area, you should be asking your designated health officer before leaving the place. Now, next is you should not open the door and open the windows frequently for ventilation, and using personal items and washing hands, using hand sanitizers, these basic things. Now, the another main thing is that you are not supposed to dispose any trash outside the area during the 14-day quarantine period. Certain trash bags like green trash bags are given for food waste and orange trash bags are given for general garbage. So you are supposed to keep the garbage inside the quarantine area and only dispose it after the 14-day quarantine if you are tested negative in the last COVID screening test. Now, I was not given the notice of isolation at the airport. I received the form with the quarantine care package in my self-accommodation, which was sent by the health center. So, and also do not panic if you get a Korean version of the isolation, since I was issued one English version isolation form, but I received a Korean form, so it is the same, so you don't have to panic. Now, another important thing is that you have to report your health condition twice a day through the two apps installed in your phone, once in the morning around 9 a.m. and once in the evening around 4 p.m. Now, if any symptoms are developing, you should immediately contact your assigned health officer in order to receive treatment and prevent the spread of the virus. Now, on the 13th day, your health officer will call you for your second COVID screening test. They will guide you if you require to go there by special COVID taxi or by walking, because you're not allowed to take the public transport. Now, sometimes they also come for testing or may take you to the nearby camps or hospital by ambulance. In my case, since I had a little daughter with me, so they sent an ambulance for the COVID screening. They took us to the testing center, and then after test, they brought back to our self-quarantine accommodation. Now, the report comes around night through SMS, and after updating your daily temperature check on the 14th day, you are allowed to leave the quarantine place. Usually you get a SMS mentioning that you have completed your mandatory 14-day quarantine period. This SMS was sent, and this means that I don't have COVID-19 and the report came negative. Now, this is the SMS which I got for me and my daughter that we both have completed our mandatory 14-day quarantine and we are free to leave the quarantine place. Hope you like this video. Please like, share and comment for more such videos. And till then, bye! And also do comment below if you have any questions related to immigration and self-quarantine.